Hi, and welcome to live show number, well, I guess it'd be 7. This is the 7th one we've recorded. Let me see, today's February the 12th. And today I want to talk about our item templates and our magic system that we're going to be working on. So let me see, let me head back into the chat room. We'll see if there's any questions that I missed beforehand. Nothing that I'm seeing. Okay, the way I've been playing around with my item template so far is right now the way we have it is set up is that we have this mesh assigned. So let's say we have a sword mesh, I believe it was an axe mesh and a Morningstar mesh that I was using originally. And what I want to start doing is creating a template out of those so we can spawn all sorts of different levels of that item and without having to make new prefabs out of it. So what I'm probably going to do is every 5 to 10 levels, character levels, we'll have it increase its stats. We'll expose it in the inspector, basically its base stats, then how much it increases every X levels. For me, it's probably going to be every 10 levels. And it's still going to be random. So let's say it starts off between 5 and 10 for max damage, and the low end damage is going to be some sort of modifier. Let's say it goes anywhere from to 25% of the max damage to 80% of the max damage. And as it levels up, we can actually define a new max damage and new modifier plus speed and everything else. So that's the way I'm looking at it right now for templates. This way here, it keeps the size of our prefabs, well, just the number of our prefabs down. Because it really sucks when you got to make 10 prefabs for basically the exact same item. And our spell system, I've been working on a little bit. I want one that's simple enough to implement that other people can put it into their game fairly easily, and also be able to have it robust enough that you can do a lot more than just what I'm doing with it. So to start off with, I've actually just gone ahead and created a table of spells. So basically each spell, or at least spell effect, has an ID number associated. It's a unique number. And along the table it has basically a name, at least a root for the name, and then you can add prefixes and suffixes to it later on. But basically all of spells are just buffs. Even like war spells or some sort of offensive magic spell, it's just a debuff to your health. So it's kind of the way I'm working it right now, and they all either affect your attribute, a vital, or a stat. Some have timers, some don't. I have a little flag for that. So if it has a timer, when it's put on you, it goes into your little buff category, and we have a separate system to keep track of that. And if it doesn't have a timer associated with it, it just hits you and it's just instantaneous and permanent. Or like in the case of some sort of damaging spell, when it hits you, it lowers your health until you raise it yourself. Yeah, I have it set to random right now, I believe. If not, we will be setting it to random. You can always just hard code it if you want and put it in the exact value you want. I like the random aspect of it because you could end up with two fairly identical items, but one's got more durability than the other, so it's actually going to last longer. And what I'm doing with durability is that you can actually repair your item, but when you repair your item, it loses a little bit of that max durability, so your items will never last forever. So when you find that really cool uber flaming sword or whatever item that you really like, it's not something that you're going to be running around just hacking on everything with. You're going to want to save that till you actually really need it or really want to use it. If you're just going out just grinding away trying to level, you're not going to be bringing your best weapon with you probably. And that's kind of what I'm going after. I haven't got into combat states yet, and I probably won't get into it till after this wave. But yeah, it is something I want to get into, and that's one thing I'm looking at with the spell tables, because later on I want spells to have these effects on them. So I want it to be able to easily, be able to generate random spells, let's say like a fireball with a stun component on it or something like that. You could use the exact same code that I put in. Instead of using a random value or a range, just put one number in there. So if you want your durability to always be 50 when the item is first created, just tell it to give you a range between 50 and 50 if you don't want to touch the code. The status effects are something I want to look at. It's also where I want to start getting to bit masks. And we haven't covered anything like that yet, so it's not really hard to really get to learn how to use. It's just something we haven't covered yet. It's pretty close to enumerations, but again, I want to hold that off for a bit. If you want, well, we make our templates for specific weapon types, so you can actually make a Morningstar template, and all your Morningstars that are created can be created with this template. And one of the great ways of doing it this way is you can actually have 3 or 4 different meshes for your Morningstar, and when the item's created, it can automatically grab one of those meshes that you want. Either you can send a variable into the code when it's generated, telling it, pick mesh 2 or pick mesh 3 or whatever one you want, or just let it pick at random, so your Morningstars even look different in game. Now, I've only got one model of a Morningstar, so I couldn't do it there, but I could do it with my axes, because I have 2 different hand axes, and then I have one 2-handed axe. So that's probably what I'm going to do for my axe. And I've been getting a lot of questions about the character customization. Their models are not set up like mine. They don't have all these different materials, or they don't have all these different meshes. The reason why I'm doing it the way I am right now is I'm just trying to show you how you can change your material. So your model doesn't have to be exactly like mine. Unless you actually buy this model package, your models probably aren't going to be the same. No one makes their models the exact same way as another person. But what I wanted to get across in the little examples that I'm doing is basically how to change a mesh on your character. And we've also covered how to change the material on your texture, or on your character. The next one I'm going to be doing is adding an offset to these items. So sometimes you'll have items come in and they don't fit perfectly. The example I'm going to be using is the hair with my character. It has something like 60 different hairstyles, but not all of them fit, perfectly on the character. So I'm going to be exposing a few variables that allow you to hard code for that particular mesh, a different offset for position, rotation, and scale, because some items are just going to need it. And the only other way around that is to go into a 3D modeling package, load it up, and set all their pivot points to the exact same spot. And that would probably take a lot longer than just loading something up in game and going, oh look, it's got to be offset by this much, rotated that much, and a little bit more scale. Write those variables into the inspector, done. I think it'd be a lot quicker this way, and that's the way I'm going to be doing it. But it's one of the more common questions I've been getting. I'm not going to have skills in my game. I'm going to have spells. And yeah, I'm going to put a little... when I first started my GUI class, I showed what my spell bar at the bottom, how it was going to look. There's 8 buttons down at the bottom, and at least the game I'm making, I'm going to limit them to only having 8 active spells at a time. Now, of course, some people aren't going to like that, and it's not going to be what you want. But you should easily be able to add more buttons, or even add different tabs. And when we start doing the character panel, we'll be going over tabs. So you can actually add different tabs, and maybe you want to have 10 buttons per tab, and they can just click through all the different tabs. So they can have like one tab set up for whatever grouping of skills they want. Maybe they're skills for buffing or stuff like that. Yeah, it was in one of them I had where I was actually setting up my GUI, like in my game, how I wanted things to look. Basically just getting the size and how everything's going to fit on the screen to make sure I had enough room for everything. I'm not sure if I'll use almost drag or if it'll just be click from your, like, since I'm going to have a spell book, which is basically like an inventory, where you can just click it and click where you want it to go. Or we could do drag and drop. It's I'm not sure if OnGUI supports drag and drop. I'd have to take a look. If drag and drop, or if the OnGUI does support drag and drop, we can do that. If it doesn't, then that means we'll have to add another system in to drag and drop not 3D meshes, but textures in. And right now I've just been doing everything with OnGUI. But like I said, if it does support drag and drop for OnGUI, we can take a look at it. So that's pretty much it for me. It's my spell system that I've started working on, and the item templates. Did anyone have any questions right now? No questions? Does anyone have anything they wanted to show off or anything? Or any interesting news they found? I see a couple people. The next part is I'm going to be doing the hair on the dressing room. And the reason why I'm doing the hair is because I wanted to show how to, we're going to add some code to our item classes so that we can position stuff better on the pivot point, or not the pivot point, the mount point. Because sometimes you can't get it to fit exactly just by putting it on and zeroing it out. So sometimes you've got to put some sort of offset onto it and then scale it and rotate it as well. So that'll be next for that. And then I think we've pretty much covered everything you're going to need to know for your dressing room. A little later on, when I actually incorporate it into my character generation. Now you got to remember, what we're working on now, even though I've called it the changing room, which is probably a bad name now, you know, in hindsight, the point of this scene that I'm creating wasn't so much for the user to see, but for you to see, so that you can actually take all your assets that you have and put them on your character to make sure that they fit right and they look right. One thing I've noticed now that I've got all my weapons done and put on, every single one of them is just a little bit low. So instead of going through and putting them all, telling them to move up just a little bit, I can just go in and move that little mount point up a little bit, and they'll all pretty much fit. It doesn't have to be exact. It really depends how much time you want to sit there and play around with each individual one. But if I move the mount point up a bit, I bet all my weapons would probably fit pretty good. But like I said, it's just a good way to be able to load your asset up in game and look at it. So the scene itself is meant for the person making the game. Now, it should be very easy to take that script that you're using in that scene, put it in your character generation scene, and then limit the options they can pick. So obviously you're not going to want to give them the option of equipping any armor that you have in game or any weapon that you have in game, but you could make a smaller list of items that they could have. And that's what I'll be doing in my character generation scene. You might only want to give them a choice of 3 or 4 different starting outfits. When we add the character customization scene, even though my model comes with different skin colors, textures for them, I'm probably going to try to just use a slider. Now the downfall with the slider will probably be when we change the color in the face. Since my face is all one texture, it's also going to affect, everything. So even the eye color. So if you start letting them go too dark, you know, their eyes will get really dark as well, because you're really just blending in a certain color with it. Yep. The changing room where we, one of the first things we went over was the character meshes. And you could just stick any mesh you want in there. This was something I was doing behind the scenes that I wasn't showing anyone. And I just thought, you know, hey, this is probably useful enough that people might want to see this. Because it was the way I was doing. Because the pro game asset packs that I have, some of them just come with so many different options. Dragging and dropping each one into the screen, it was just too time consuming. Being able to make a quick prefab out of it, throw it into a list, and then just have an arrow button to click through the list. I'm not sure about the current version of the demo I have up right now, but I've actually started creating 3D elements for it, and I'll be going over that when I actually implement the scene in our character generation screen, putting actual 3D elements in the screen to click. But I forget what I was talking about already. But anyway, yeah, to be able to go through your items and see exactly what fits where and on each mob, I found pretty good. Yeah, if you're using the Pro Games, I believe it's Commoners and Warriors, or Warriors and Commoners, they have two packages available. They have the $100 package, and they have the $150 package. I'm not exactly sure what the $100 package includes, but I know it doesn't include everything. And if you have the $150 package, it does include everything, but apparently they've made it, separated into two packages, where one package has all the materials put together, and in the old package, is the one I'm using, all the materials are separated. And by having them separated, it's a little more customizable. I don't actually have the new package, so I don't know what exactly is in it. By having all your textures on one material, it is more efficient, but we're not too worried about that. I don't have a permalink for it. Every time I make changes to it, though, I throw it up on the website as a sticky, and I usually leave it there for about a week. At least four days or so. If you do go to the search bar on the website, I believe I called it hack / demo. Let me just take a look here. It helps if I hit search. Yeah, hack / demo. It shows up. Now, right now, I've only got the changing room scene up. So, because that's what I've been working on. But yeah, if you just search for hack / demo, it's on the site still. I haven't taken it down. It's cycled off the front page. Oh, that's another thing I wanted to talk about was the front page. Now, I let people post stuff to the website because, you know, I'd like to let people do announcements and stuff like that. But if it's just a simple question you want to ask, what I ask is that you would move that to the forums, and or if you just have a comment or something like that, I'd prefer to see stuff like that in the forums as opposed to on the front page of the website. Like, I'd like to save the front page for either stuff that people want to showcase or stuff like that. Oh, yeah, if it's something about the web, like this website, yeah, by all means email me. I get a ton of email every day regarding the website and the tutorials, so there's, I can't say I'll get back to you the exact same day. But yeah, if it's something about my website, you can just use the website feedback part, or the contact us. Oh, and another thing is, if you're ripping 3D meshes and stuff like that out of modeling other games and stuff like that, and you're making your own demo with it, that's fine. You know, go ahead. But I ask that you don't post a link to it on the website, as it is still illegal, and I really don't want to be associated with it. Because after all, it would suck to have the website shut down and no more tutorials, wouldn't it? I think that's pretty much it for the website. There's only been a few cases of it, but I wanted to bring it up because we are starting to become a little more popular, and I don't really want to shut down the ability to have other people post stuff. Yeah, there's nothing I can do about that unless I want to pay I can't remember what it was. It was something like $300 to $500 a month. Like, then I can get rid of the ads. And since I only use it rarely, I'm not going to pay, $300 to $500 a month to get rid of the ads. Yeah. Actually, to be honest, I haven't checked Justin TV's prices. They might not even offer the ability to get rid of the ads. But a couple of the other sites that I was looking at, I had seen that they do offer an ad-free version, and it's expensive. By the time we start the dressing room again, we'll be redoing that. The way it is right now, we had the meshes automatically in our hand or on the weapon mount point, and then when you equip the item, it would just basically turn that mesh on and turn all the rest off. I guess you can basically say I've abandoned that way because I've got a lot of email about people with certain circumstances where that's not going to work. Either they had a lot of meshes attached to that particular weapon, or for some reason they just couldn't turn it on and off. So now I'm going with the instantiate a whole new item in your hand, and that way should work pretty much for everyone. That should probably handle at least 99% of the cases that I've been emailed about, and I just haven't got there. I haven't really had a whole lot of time to work on the project this week. As you notice, I probably haven't put a tutorial out Monday, Tuesday, something like that, earlier in the week anyway. But I have been working on Photon, and it looks like my new live chat room is actually going to be a demo of our game, so sounds cool. So we'll actually be able to run around and see each other in game, and have a chat box that I'm hooking up to the IRC channel. So no longer will you have this big Mibit box. You'll basically be in game with the chat box. Now, I've still got a lot to do, so it's not anything I'm going to be putting up, this week or anything like that. But it is something I'm working on. Now, to be honest, I probably won't cover how I did that anytime soon, because there's still so much more I want to get through. But that will be part of the online series. It's pretty random. I don't really have a set schedule. One of the most important things for me being able to do a live show is to have someone to watch my son while I do it. Or for the people that have been down here, he runs around, he makes a lot of noise. I have a toy horse down here that he likes to ride. It makes a lot of noise. He mauls the cat. He's up on my desk. He's waving at the camera. And yeah, so basically I have to wait till my wife is home so she can watch him. Outside, it's just not worth doing a live show. There's been a few tutorials where you hear him in, and that's usually because maybe he's lying down having a nap and he woke up near the end or something like that. But yeah, if I can't get anyone to watch him while I'm doing it, I can't do a live show. So that's why they're so erratic. I would love to be able to say, every Saturday at 5, because that seems to be the best time for the majority of people. For the people, on the other side of the world from me, it's Sunday, so chances are they'll have the time off. Not always. I'm not going to be able to accommodate everyone. And there was one week where I tried 2 days. I did one like on a Friday earlier in the day, and one later on in a Saturday. And that didn't work out well. And I've tried throughout other times of the week, different days, different times. And I honestly find Saturday to be the best. And it also works out best for me. But I do leave the feed on. I haven't been around much this week, but I try to be on, provided I don't really have a whole lot of stuff I have to do. I'll leave it on and be glad to answer questions. There's a lot of people in the chat room that will answer questions if they have an answer. And of course, we have the forums. Was there any other questions? No, I think there's still things I wanted to add to it. Like there's some things it's not the final version, because I know there's some stuff I still want to go through and do stuff to. As far as like code cleanup and some more instances of animations. Like I still haven't put in my walk backwards animation, and I still want to hook it up so that if you don't have a walk backwards animation, just take your walk forward animation and play it backwards. Little things like that. I don't see anything big I'm going to be adding to it. We've already got a way, or at least a demonstration on how to hook up swimming. And like I'm not going to bother doing climbing and stuff like that. I don't think there's a whole lot I'm going to be doing to it. Nothing new and exciting to it. Just clean up and a few changes. For the most part, it should be working. I haven't really taken it out and tested the crap out of it, but I believe everything's working, isn't it? I'm not sure what you mean in MMOs. Every MMO I've always played, you've used the keyboard. I've done RTSs where you click to move. If you're having an issue with the script, if you go into the forums, there should be a forum for the hack and slash tutorials. You can just post any issues you have there. That's the preferred spot. I think it'll get the most view. I've never played WoW, so I'm not sure what you mean by using the mouse to turn. Yeah, on the forums there's the tutorial section, and of course the only tutorial under there is the hack and slash one. There's 97 topics, so I guess if yours isn't in there, you can go ahead and just throw it in there. Yeah, I won't be doing mouse movement like that. I want to strictly keep my mouse just for my camera. Now, I know there are scripts available that come with Unity that have that functionality, either like that or at least similar to it. So you could always open up one of those scripts and take a look as well. I have seen other scripts that do that. It's just for me personally, I want to keep my mouse script or the script for my mouse controls all for my camera. I believe it actually is a special version for Unity. Well, last time I tried updating it, it did not work. Now that's also on a Mac, and this was just after beta. So I'm not sure if it was the first live version or if they came out with one after, but when I went out and grabbed a new version of MonoDevelop, it didn't work. Okay. There is a website that converts your JavaScripts to C#. I always forget the name of it. I probably posted about it somewhere on the site, but I can't recall offhand. But if you did a Google search on it, I'm sure you'd be able to find it. So all those JavaScripts that you have, you just go to the website, you paste it in, it gives you the C code. Now the C code itself might not be 100% functional because of the way you can do things in JavaScript that you can't do in C#, but there shouldn't be a whole lot of updates to get it working. I don't really want to be copying a lot of code from the Unity wiki. Like, you could pretty much go to the Unity wiki and just build any game you want just by grabbing their codes and modifying it. The whole purpose was not to just grab resources from everywhere and put a game together with it, but to actually sit down and try to implement all these systems yourself. Now we've gone over how to move stuff on the mouse, like moving the camera when you're rotating it. You could also just sit down and when I was doing the mouse movement for rotating side to side, instead of moving the camera, you could just have it move your mouse or your player. Was there any other questions or announcements or anything? Anyone find anything cool? I seen earlier people mentioned about the Messiah thing being at 83%. Have a lot of people signed up to get their version of Messiah yet? I've signed up to get it, but I really don't know what it does. You bought 2 copies? You needed 2 copies? So my understanding is once they reach the 100%, they'll email you your license code. I'm assuming that's how it works. I believe that's what I read. Yeah. For PC and Mac. I just figured for $40 you for the Pro version versus I think it was like 1100, 1200, something like that. It's pretty good. It probably will just end up being like most of the 3D modeling software I have, where I install it, play with it a bit, and then never touch it again. But oh well. It's better than going out and spending $1,000 on it and same thing happening. I've got a lot of software that was recommended to me by friends that I went out and spent a lot on, then didn't play with it a whole lot. Yeah, I know it does animation. That was the final thing for me, was the fact that I can just import my models into it and then animate it. I believe you can actually rig it in there as well. I was reading over some of the stuff on the site. And that was also one of the reasons why I got the Pro version, was because I wanted to make sure I got all the options, because I'd really feel stupid if I got the $10 version and then found out later that some of the things that I actually wanted it for were Pro only. Because I've been looking at the Mixamo.com, I believe it is. They have a website that does pretty much the exact same thing. You can upload your model to it. Now it has to be rigged, but they have default sets of animations, and you can pick what animations you want your character to do, and you can tweak it and everything else. And then you can pay a certain amount, and it would send you all the animation files for that character, which is a really fast way to get the basic animations you want for a model in your game. And I'm looking at this software as kind of replacing that option. Now, I haven't tried it yet, but I've never heard anything bad about it. I've heard a lot of good stuff. I figure for $40 I'll try it. Yeah, I just replied with your issue there. I'm going to try later on tonight to finish off the Changing Room series, but it all depends, how much time I get. Make human, the poly count is way too high. I played around with it a couple years ago. Well, maybe not a couple of years ago, probably about a year ago. And the poly count is just insanely high for using it in games. Sure, it makes a really nice looking mesh, but it's just really high. And then I was using Blender at the time as well, and I think I was using the decimate command or something like that, and that just screws up your geometry. To be honest, I think you're just better off learning how to do a basic box model of a human, or at least a humanoid shape, and going from there. Yeah, like, don't get me wrong, the models look really great, and they'd be great for like posing and doing renderings and stuff, but for game development, I haven't been able to get the poly count low enough. I always end up having to go in and re-topology everything, and the time it takes me to do that, I could have just box modeled it. No, but it's also only another $30 over the basic version. So for $30, I don't mind getting all the little extra doodads. Like a lot of the stuff in Pro was stuff like hair. Was it like hair collision and stuff that you wouldn't want to use in your game because it'd probably just be way too resource intensive. But for $30, you know, even if they didn't have like I guess the basic version, the non-pro version, $40 is still a pretty good price. Like I can't think of any other software package out there for $40 that would compete with what you can do with this as far as just using it as a pipeline. Like even if you go to Mixamo.com, they're fairly cheap for their animation packages, but you know, $40 you just load your stuff in. Once you've learned how to use it, you never like have to spend any more money unless you're actually buying your own models. And like I said, from reading on their website, I believe you can do all your rigging inside of this application. So that's going to be great if we can just go out, buy models off of, you know, insert the name of your favorite website here, load them in, and then just add the animations you want. Like, sounds good to me. Never again will I have to worry about buying a model and looking down through the list of animations going, you know, great, it has 5 idle stances, but it's only got 1 attack, you know. Oh, it's got like 4 walk ones, but no run. And, well, that's not too bad, because you just make one play faster. But every so often you see a really cool model that's just missing 1 or 2 animations that are key to your game. But now you can just add them. So are there any other questions? Very briefly, I've thought about the particle effects, and I actually have a working demo, but it's not anything spectacular. Basically what I did is I have when my player casts a spell, I have this little particle effect go up over me, and the actual texture I'm using for the particle is going to change according to the stat or the skill or the vital that's being buffed. So let's say you're doing strength, and, you know, I haven't actually gone ahead and named any of my spells. When I'm casting my strength spell, you just see, you know, buff strength, and it goes out and it's just got like a big flexing arm. That's its texture. And what I was going to do is, as it goes up levels, your spell that is, the particles themselves just get bigger and more of them, and it just right now all I have is just like a rainbow effect on me, or not a rainbow, but like a fountain effect. So it like shoots up and trickles down, and I change the color according to the skill or the attribute that it's based off of. I haven't done anything special with it, so as far as fireballs and stuff like that, I have not gotten that far into it. It would be really cool if by the time I did get to that point, something like Arcanics was out. Yeah, I haven't got that far into particle effects. Particle effects really are not that hard to do. I can't think of a good tutorial series off the top of my head, but the particle system itself is not that hard to play with. Doing a fireball, like shooting at a fireball, is not that hard as far as the particle settings that you have to do, or the settings in the particle emitter and everything else that you have to do. We'll probably go over a little bit in particle effects, but since it's all just settings, there's really not a lot of programming you have to do with it. Like, you can script them. Oh, there's a few toots on particle effects. Attribute. Well, 3D Buzz has a few on particle effects. I might just tell everyone to go look at it over there. But yeah, but since particle effects are mostly just your variables exposed at the side, you just type in how big do you want this on the y-axis, how big do you want it on the z, and then you'll have another one like for random. Yeah, and they all have tooltips, I believe. So if you're not sure what one does, you can either just look it up in the documentation. Unity has a really good write-up on all the options in your particle emitter, the animator. Well, we might look at one maybe for where you can add a mesh to particle effects. But no, we're not going to bother getting into that. Not yet. I was thinking if we had some sort of exploding thing and you could have the mesh particles fly off and anything they hit you take damage from, but we're not going to get that deep into it just yet. But yeah, I'd definitely go take a look at the other tutorials on particle effects if you're completely lost on it. If everyone's really completely lost on it, I can go over it, but once I go over it, you'll probably be sitting there going, oh my god, you know, this is so boring. Okay. Well, that's good. Speaking of Buzz3D, how many people have signed up for their MMO project? Well, there you go. Now I don't have to cover particles. Yeah. Oh, you didn't? I've signed up, but I've only watched the first video. Welcome to the class. I'll probably stick with it, go through the end. I imagine I'm probably going to have mine done before they actually finish, before they even get started on their server stuff. My understanding is they're going to try to get a couple hours out a week, and they tend to talk a lot, which is fine. It's just with the amount of talking they do, I'm not sure how far they'll actually get each week. But even still, after I've got mine out and running, I can easily go through theirs and go, oh, there's something I didn't know about Photon, and put it in. But I imagine theirs, it sounds like it's going to be at least a year, a multi-year project type thing. Maybe they'll finish up with Unity 4.0. So I know there's a few people from the website on there, but okay, well, that pretty much wraps it up for me, unless anyone has anything else they want to add or have any questions for the people that got here late. Well, that's why I added for the people that got here late. The game object with the small g refers to the game, this game object, the script that this game object is attached to, where game object with the big G is referring to, you know, like you're creating a game object or you're creating a variable of a game. It's a type. The big G game object, you're referring to the type. Small g game object, you're referring to whatever you're attached to. I'm actually recording it, so it'll be up later on, hopefully tonight. I'm not going to bother going through editing. I'm just going to encode and upload. The benefit of being a partner. No more editing for stuff like this. Unless I had to. Okay, that's it. I'm going to turn off the recording. I see one more person typing. 3 people typing. Okay. I didn't see you sneak in there, Hans. Okay, well, there's still 2 more people typing, so I'll wait till they're done. If it wasn't a question, I'll just edit it out at the end. I'm hoping tonight, right now I'm pretty busy, so I spent probably an hour today working on prefabs for all my weapon and armor. And then last night I sat around making icons. That took me a lot longer than I thought it was going to. Hopefully tonight, because I'd like to finish the whole changing room scene up tonight. So later on I can just basically start off. I'll probably just start off with creating it into our character generation scene. I was going to leave it for other people to experiment with, then come back and do it, just to give people a chance to try to figure it out themselves. If I do end up doing it next, where we integrate it into our character generation scene, then I'll make sure I properly title it that way, and you can just not watch those till you get yours done. But then after that, so we're going to have our weapon templates we're going to have to work on. I've already started mine, and unfortunately I was doing it with the latest version of my scripts as opposed to a backup. So I've gone through my scripts and I've been taking a look at what I've changed. So there might be one or two things that pop up that have changed that I didn't catch. And I'm sure I'll just get comments about it in the description box below. But as far as templating things out, it looks like it's going to be pretty easy and flexible enough that anyone can use it. Multiple meshes, multiple materials, and then just assigning different tiers to a weapon. And the way I'm using the tiers is, when you're first hunting, let's say you kill a level 5 mob, it sends that, it looks up in the table and goes, oh, look, I'm a level 5 mob, or what it's going to be referred to as like the tier 1 mob. So it tells it, generate me, tier 1 loot. And when it's generating the loot again, we'll have to go back into the item generator. It goes, okay, I'm going to make an item, and I want it to be, it rolls randomly. We're making a Morningstar. And okay, and it passes the stuff into the Morningstar, and it tells the Morningstar you're tier 1. So it knows what values to generate from. Then later on, if you kill like a level 15 mob, it's like, oh, I'm tier 2. And the same thing will go through, except it just uses its tier 2 values. I figured that would be the easiest and most flexible way to do it for everyone. Like, there are other ways I would like to do it that are probably a little more efficient, but they're not nearly as flexible. And since I want it to actually be flexible enough that everyone can use it, not everyone's making a hack and slash style game. I've seen a few demos now where it has absolutely nothing to do with swords and sorcery. So I'd like to keep it flexible enough for them as well. The particle effects, only particle effects I'm going to be adding to my weapon are elemental ones. So if it's a fire sword, there'll be a fire particle effect. If there's, if it's ice, there'll be a blue particle effect. Those are the only particle effects I'll be putting on my weapons. But it should at least show you how to add particles to your weapon and allow you to go from there. As far as having something like a sword +4, I'm not doing my weapons that way. What I'm doing is I have a max damage, and for the maximum amount of damage you can do, and then I have a minimum damage, which is just a variance off the max damage. So, for instance, let's say you roll an 80% on the variance, and your max damage was 10. You would end up with a weapon that could do 8 to 10 damage per hit. And if you want to add bonuses to it, let's say, so that's my common Morningstar, we'll say. And let's say it rolled an uncommon item and thus increased its damage. Instead of being 10 max, it could be 15 max. So you'll never actually get an item that says, Morningstar +4. It'll just be, maybe a 14 max damage. Okay. DStew99, I'm not sure what you were talking about. Could you adapt that to chest too? Do you mean the chest when you open it up and the items generate? Well, he's typing that out. I can answer Kai's question. Yes, it has to do with if you look at your animation when it's playing, if you open up the animation window, There's no animations from the waist down, so when you're using your crossfade, there's nothing for it to crossfade to. It's something I probably won't touch till near the end of the series. If you actually just create an animation for the lower part of the body on idle, it should work. Because now you have something to crossfade to. The technical terms had to do with the transforms not having proper curves or something at the end. That was a thread that I actually read about on the Unity site, which led me to actually open up the animation editor and take a look and realize there's no animations for the lower part of the body, from like the lower chest down. So you'll notice even the abdomen at times will seem kind of stretched when you go to idle for the Warrior and Commoner pack. But the fix that I've seen is just make some animations for those joints. Okay, so next. I'm not sure what you mean, am I doing delays? That was Night Shadow? Yes, well, when my mob dies, it drops a chest, and the chest itself is going to hold the tier of the loot that's supposed to be in there. And there's going to be a few other things that it's going to hold. For instance, if the mob was... Well, right now I'm just doing all basic common mobs. But later on I'd like to get into uncommon mobs, rare mobs, and they'll hold like better loot, obviously, for killing them, and more loot potentially. And that'll be another variable I want to pass into the chest. So the chest is actually, when you open it up, it sends its variables off to the item generator. So when it's creating loot, it knows, you know, okay, I'm creating loot of this tier from this level of mob, or not level of mob, but rarity of mob. That's the way I'd like to work it anyway. I haven't got that far, but that's the way I've got it planned out. Okay. Oh, delays on hits. You mean when you attack a mob? Yeah, I will have a delay. I'll probably run it off a set amount, so maybe you can only use your skill. Let's say I'm going to set up a static timer. Basically, you have a delay of 2 seconds or something like that in between each attack. It might only be 1.5, depends on how fast of gameplay you want going. And then certain things can modify that speed. So let's say like a physical attack, swinging your sword. I want to use stuff, you know, like quickness and strength to give a slight attack speed bonus. So let's just use the instance of 2 seconds. Everything has a 2-second melee attack delay in between attacks. But the stronger and quicker a mob is, they'll be able to get their attacks in slightly quicker or faster. And same thing with characters. I'm not sure what you mean about the size of the weapon. I haven't bothered taking, you know, like this item has this much mass or anything like that. No. To me, swinging a sword and swinging an axe is going to be the same. No. You could obviously create a variable for that and add that into the equation as well if you wanted. Yeah, I'm not going to go that deep into it, but it would just be as simple as adding another variable to your weapon for like speed. I might have added a speed variable to it. I'm not sure. It's something I have looked at, but it's not something I'm planning on implementing anytime soon. But yeah, just add a speed variable to your weapon, and you can put that into your equation as well. And then for maybe casting animations or casting spells, I want it to be controlled by the animation. And again, also have some sort of modifier that allows you to cast just a little bit faster, just to kind of benefit the people that have developed their characters more towards magic or more towards melee. It kind of sucks in some games you play that you've got some, you know, mage type build that can, you know, buff up and then swing a sword just as good as, you know, that melee guy, and vice versa. Now I'm not going to have different types of magic. Right now I just have all magic grouped under one skill, and later on we can flush it out if we find out that we need more disciplines for magic, or schools, or whatever you want to call it. We can flesh it out more later on, but for now I'm just sticking them all into one skill. Yeah, I've gone to his website and taken a look at it. I don't want to get that heavy into creating a whole lot of different particle effects right now. There's still a lot of basic implementation that I want to get running. To me, personally, eye candies always come last. I like to work on the system first. And for the people who are actually watching the Buzz 3D series, they like to work on their story first. To me, I like to get the basic functionality working, and then work on story, and then eye candy, and the eye candy is related to the story, but everyone has their own way of doing stuff. And this is my first time going through anything this big, so I'm not saying mine's the right way. It's just the way I'm going through it. And to be honest, the story that I'm going to be using for my game later on, I'm actually just stealing from an old iPhone game that I made. Just never finished it. I already had the story written, so I might as well use it, right? Well, since I'm only covering the basic implementation in the game, like, there's nothing story-driven implementation type stuff. Like, I know I want melee combat, and I know I want to be able to attack and run at the same time. I'm still not sure if I want my guy to be able to cast and run at the same time. But yeah, that's something I can work on later on. It's easy to add. I think it was Kai that was talking about status effects on your character, and if you don't want your character to be able to cast and run at the same time, you can easily stick a flag on it. I'm not going to be doing any PvP. No, I'm not going that far into it. Then you have to start getting into balancing. Then yeah, I figure 3 to 4 or 3 to 5 players on their own instance world, I think that should be a pretty big step for anyone that really wants to go much further. And there's still a ton of stuff I have to keep reading up on Photon. I've only got the basic implementation working now, so hopefully I can get that up and running in a few weeks, and we'll get rid of this little chat room here. I'll probably keep it there for the people that don't want to log into the actual game and do anything in the game. I'll keep this here, but up top I'll throw in the basically chat inside the game, and people can run around and whatever my latest build is and take a look. Now, those scripts are obviously going to be kept separate from the scripts that we're using to build this game right now until we get to the Photon part. Okay. Anything else? I see 2 more people typing. I'm not really sure what you mean by base combat formula. It's going to be each weapon's going to have a base damage, and there's going to be a modifier based on your strength, which increases that. Yeah, there will be that. The way I'm doing is each weapon has a base damage associated with it, and it's a range between the min and the max. And of course, the min, I said, was based on a variance from the max. And then you get a strength bonus attached to it for melee attacks. And then your weapon also has a damage type. Now, everything in game is going to have a resistance level to that that damage type, and based on whatever that creature's resistance is to your weapon, let's say they have an 80% resistance, and you're hitting them for 10 points of damage. Well, he's only going to take 2. So there is a very simple formula to work with. It's nothing hugely complex or anything like that. It's something very simple. You got to keep in mind that I do have a lot of people that are probably between the ages of 8 to 15, or a lot of people that don't have a lot of programming experience. And I'd like to keep them being able to go along with this as well. Yeah. Yeah, you are going to be able to hit and miss, and that's going to be completely based on your level versus the creature's level. I'll have one merchant in before we head off to doing online stuff, just to sell stuff to, and he'll sell the basic supplies. I'm not sure if the latest demo I put up, I've decided to keep a torch not only as an item in game, but I'm actually making it a weapon that you can use, and it's going to be your first, elemental damage type thing. Now I do want to write one more script for it so that it burns out over time. So basically its durability constantly goes down, like a point a minute or type thing. So obviously, again, not something you want to keep wielding, but it's just something that's really cool, because I'm still working on a lot of stuff like for my game, and I was working on a dungeon and I wanted it to be very dark and gloomy, so I didn't want to have a whole lot of lights, but at the same time I didn't want to restrict the area around the player to really what he could see. So I started making a torch that he could carry, and I was like, well, I know he's carrying it, now he's got to switch to his weapon. It was just kind of a nuisance, so I thought, well, what if you could just attack with it? So yeah, I decided just to keep a torch. So you can actually go out and buy torches from the vendor, and I'm not exactly sure how long I want them to last. Obviously not long, because I don't want people to always be using them for fighting with, unless you're going to end up going around making everyone really resistant to fire. But it'd still be kind of nice to be able to go into some place and just explore with the torch. And of course later on, yeah, we'll have a spell for lighting the area up around you. That's something I've always liked about some of the older style games, where you go into a dungeon or something like that and it's just black, and you can't really have your guy wielding a torch, a shield, a sword or axe, whatever. So you'll probably want to have some sort of light spell, but the first set of spells I'm going to be working on are purely just buffs. And then from there I'll probably go back to the damaging spells, because the way I've got it written out right now, my damaging spells are just permanent debuffs to health, basically. To your current health, not your max health. And the particle effect will be different. No pets. Not yet. Like, I may add pets as an add-on much later on, but I don't have it written down under anything yet. I'm not sure. Every skill and stat and vital will have a buff as well as a debuff later on. As far as the amount of buff, it's, if you want to add 5 points, if you want to add 10 points, that's completely up to you. The way I'm working my magic in my game is I'm going to have basically levels in magic, and everyone starts off, at level 1, and it's going to be like our tiers in weapon. So let's say like a level 1 strength buff. It gives you, let's say, 5 strength. And then maybe every 100 points after, it goes up a level, or maybe even 150 points or something like that. It goes up another level. So let's just make it at every 100 points, it goes up a level. So at level 101, your spell is now like level 2, and instead of adding 5 points, it adds 10 points, or double whatever your first level gave you, and so on, all the way up. And this way here, you never really have a cap. Eventually you will have to cap it at some point. You really don't want people being able to basically double a maxed out stat just by casting a spell, or just running around in rags and just casting spells on themselves to increase everything. I'm just catching up on some of the chat. I do have it slotted to have regeneration for health, energy, or stamina and mana. I just haven't put it in yet, and they'll just be based off of stats. So, for instance, your health is going to be based off your constitution. The more constitution you have, the faster you regen. I'd like to be able to have you regen faster out of combat than in combat, but I'm not sure if I'll get that far into it. It might just be a static regeneration for you. And the mobs will have it as well, because we're going to be putting it in our actual character classes. So that means your mobs will regenerate as well. And another thing I want to add with the mobs is when they return back to their home, I want them to, like, if they get stuck on something, after so much time, they just teleport back home, and they'll just instantly be put back up to full health, all status effects, basically a fresh mob. Yeah, but then you gotta code in the sitting and everything else. I want it to be fast enough that after you've finished a good battle, you could pretty much regenerate up to full health in 30 seconds to 60 seconds of just standing there. Like I don't want my player to have to wait more than a minute to get up to full health. So basically how much you gain per tick over 60 seconds type thing. So higher constitution, you're going to get more per tick. So let's say like a real feebly guy, you know, very low constitution, he might have to wait his full 60 seconds to get all of his health back. But some guy who has like a lot of health or a lot of constitution might only have to wait 30 seconds. I'm just keeping them all as offensive or melee offense, but that is something you can break down. You can break it down to, you know, sword skills, axe skill, mace skill, whatever you want, crossbow skill, bow skill. Yeah, that's fine. I've played games like that in the past, and it really sucks when you're sitting around working up your sword skill and you got really good at sword, but all of a sudden you find this really good, you know, mace, and you're like, well, I can't use a mace. You know, my mace skill is so low that... So I'm just going to try to keep them all under the same skill. I figure if I keep them all under the same skill, at least melee skill, regardless of what melee weapon you pick up, you're trained in all melee weapons, basically. I'm not saying it's better, it's just something I want to try. So that's why I have basically 3 different types of offensive attacks. You know, you have magic, you have ranged, and you have melee. If you want to add sex in, that's fine. I don't have any female models that go with the meshes that I'm using, or the Fro game pack I'm using. So all my models right now are male. But that's something you can actually add in when we start getting into the more in-depth in the character generation. Since I have a list of meshes for your character meshes, you can actually make 2 of them. One for male, one for female. And when you're switching through the mesh, like I only have 2. I have the fat guy and the muscular guy. Now I have gone ahead and played a bit with scaling. And you can do a little bit of scaling just by stretching the model. Or not stretching, scaling it on its X, Y, and Z. Remember, if you're going to scale on X, to scale on Z as well. So the way I have it is I have like 2 little arrows pointing up and down, and 2 to the side, and the little slider in between. So I can scale on Y, or on the one that's looks like it's working on the X, actually works on X and Z. And you can scale, you know, a reasonable, depending on the model, really, I guess. You can scale quite a bit, though, before your textures and everything else really start to look funny on the model. But that's actually a whole global scale as well. So if you just wanted to, you know, give the guy a really big belly, it probably wouldn't work. Or if you had a female model and you want to make really big boobs on her, it's not going to work. So if you want to scale individual parts, you're going to have to look at mesh deformation. Okay, so we were going for about an hour, and I told my wife it would be about an hour. Are there any other questions? Okay, well, I'm going to call this done, and I'm going to start the encoding, and head upstairs. We're taking my son out to the pet store because they have a dog adoption thing going, and we're going to go let them look at puppies. Even though we already have enough dogs, we're not getting any. Okay. Okay, I'll see you all later. I'll probably be on later on tonight after we get back from the puppy store. Let me see my recording and stop. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.